Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning wherever you are, and those of you joining us on YouTube. We are again today discussing the philosophy and ideology of Constantism, which is a philosophy and ideology for decolonization, with particular reference to the African Revolution. And we had finished chapter 2. And we would like to today kind of summarize the chapter for ourselves and then move on to chapter 3. So today's session is a discussion around what is it that chapter 2 said to us, and review it, get a clarity around the key message, and so we can move on. So thank you for joining us. Right, Brother Pigeon.
Brother Kwame.
Yeah, so you'll be chairing the session, even though I'll be going through a few slides. You'll be chairing it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So yes, thank you. Welcome to you all, comrades. To those of us who are present here already, permit me to recognize the presence of Brother Kwame, General Nunaki from South Africa. We have Sister Ida. Mahole Lebona, I think it's the first time you're joining us, or second. Feel free to actually introduce yourself. We have Elder Glenroy here with us. We have Brother Sam, Sir Windhoek from Namibia, and you have Sister Tapo from Zimbabwe. Elder Glenn is from Zanzibar. And Mahole, please feel free to introduce yourself. If you can hear me. I know your camera is on. If you can be able to introduce yourself, feel free, Mahole. Okay. No problem. You will feel free to introduce yourself in the chat anytime. So, comrades, today we are actually done with chapter 2 of our Consensus Study Group. And we felt that we did the last reading of the paragraphs in our last session, but there was a need for us to summarize clearly what is coming out of this chapter 2 of Consensusism. We know it's philosophy and society, and we are looking at elements of key things of our discussion is to lessons we learned from this chapter and what is Nkrumah's core message. So we'll try to explore what Nkrumah teaches about harmonizing African tradition, modern tribes, or realities, how philosophy can be a tool for liberations. There are so many things we're going to do, but before we do that, Brother Kwame will take us in the first session or first part of this to give to us a summary of chapter 2 with the key information necessary for us. Then we'll open up the conversation for more contribution and conversation, as we always do. What do you think out of the chapter 2? We'll always go back to try a bit and reflect at the book. I'll be able to share the book when needed so that you can reference anywhere we want to do a quote on or what you want to quote to come up with. So basically, that's what we look forward to have today. The next Thursday, we now will continue to chapter 3. So without much ado, Brother Kwame, let me know if you're ready so that you can take us in this first part.
Yeah, so chapter 2 is an interesting chapter because it brings together what you might consider to be the entire history of Western philosophy. Going back to what people would call the African antecedents, and to modern times, the post-demise of Nkrumah himself, and where we are now. So it's an interesting chapter. The time is 7:13, and I will endeavor to make it a half an hour at most presentation so we can have a discussion, because there's just so much to say. So although I have prepared some slides, I will whisk through them very, very quickly. Try and do a minute per slide. I have about 22. I'll try and do a minute per slide. So you will all recall that Apart from the Father, Constantism starts with a quote from Engels in the inside page. You must also be aware of the quote by Marx that says that philosophers have interpreted the world. The point is to change it. So the transformation of the world is for us, or for philosophers, over the years, over the centuries, going by all the way back to the pre or the Christian era, starting from AD 0, if you like, up to 2025 today. Philosophy has always been interested in transformation, in interrogating power and transforming society. So Nkrumah's thesis in chapter 2 is that philosophy is not neutral. It never has been. It always reflects and shapes power. So what I try to do is to go through from Thales to Marx very briefly, and then what I have tried to do is to reconfigure time, what I would call our time, along the lines that Nkrumah, in terms of all the philosophers that Nkrumah looked at, and there are many, over 18 of them in chapter 2. And then we look at what is our duty today in light of the position of Western philosophers who are not interested in transforming the world anymore. And then we can look at what you might call contemporaries of these philosophers. Nkrumah mentioned Amu, if you recall, but there are others. And then you can also then see what is called Afrofuturism. And the Black BCM means the Black Consciousness Movement of South Africa, as expressions of Constantism, if you like. Here is a long list of some of the philosophers that Nkrumah mentioned. You can see them are Thales, Anaximander, Heraclitus, Anaxagoras, Protagoras, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. We looked at all these philosophers and what they did. And each and every one of them, these are ancient Greek philosophers, each and every one of them attempted or did interrogate power and lead in some way the transformation of their societies. Not a single one of them did not attempt to transform society. All of them. We'll look at some of them in a bit more detail later. So these are the ancient Greek philosophers. Please desist Africans from seeing these people as white people. Some of us are in the habit of thinking that Plato was a white man, Socrates was a white man, and Anaxagoras was a white man. Please, they are not necessarily white Caucasian males. Okay, thank you. Keep that in mind. Some of these people were Africans, or if you like, they were Black, just like you and I. Then we go to the Hellenistic or medieval philosophers. And here we are looking at Plotinus and St. Augustine. Plotinus was a Platonist, if you like. And St. Augustine was also a philosopher of that period. So we are talking about the period when the church killed, well, not directly, but they inspired a mob to kill Hypatia, a Black woman philosopher in Alexandria. And then Plato's academy was closed down in the 6th century by the Pope Justinian. From around that time all the way to the Renaissance is medieval Europe. And these two philosophers were the key philosophers. Again, their point was to transform society in the image of the church, if you like. Then we go to the early, what we call the early modern philosophers: Descartes, Leibniz, Locke, Berkeley. Remember, Descartes and Leibniz were top mathematicians. They are French mathematicians. John Locke and Berkeley were English. Yeah, they were from England. Again, Nkrumah mentions these people and then how they sought to transform society. You remember Descartes was responsible for the French Revolution alongside Leibniz. John Locke, remember, was responsible for the US Constitution and the idea that kings don't have divine rights. Berkeley was a pastor, if you like. So again, these people, Nkrumah mentions these philosophers, and also the point is that all these guys were never neutral. This is the point. They were engaged in interrogating power and transforming society. Then from there, we come to the 18th and 19th century philosophers. People like Immanuel Kant, Hegel, Mill, Marx, yeah. And again, these were not neutral. They were also interrogating power and seeking to transform society. And then the others Nkrumah mentioned were Xenophon, Rabelais, Malebranche, Montaigne, Huet, Fouché, and Pascal. These are also mentioned. Now you notice that these philosophers, how we see them is that they are materialists or idealists. Yeah, because idealism is the idea that the universe is made up of spirits and ideas, and materialism is the idea that the universe is made from matter. The key point about chapter 2 is that all the philosophers I've mentioned that were analyzed not for their abstract ideas. This is what is important, but for their social impact. You see, that is the point. And if we just pick these few, Thales, Plato, Locke, and Marx, you can see that Thales' philosophy, the whole point of his philosophy was to undermine priestly theocracy, or what we called, when we read it, sacerdotal power, the power of the priests who claimed that they could speak to God so that agriculture would thrive. And Thales' role, or his philosophical position, was to undermine them. And he used water as his philosophical basis, what is called monism. The idea that everything comes from one thing, or one thing underpins the entire universe. And for Thales, that was water. Plato also, you recall, he in the Christian era, his philosophy was used to justify medieval feudalism. That's the idea that there was God, and then there was a king as God's representative on earth who had a divine right to rule. And then you have the aristocratic class. Then you have the working class, farmers and so on. The serfs, ordinary people who worked for the landowners, the feudalists who own all the land. So then comes Locke, and Locke is an Enlightenment philosopher, and Locke uses empiricism and property rights, and you notice that in as much as Locke was fighting for the rights of man, if you like, his philosophy sanctioned colonialism. And that is the other aspect of philosophy, that philosophy is not neutral. In as much as it is trying to promote something, that which it tries to promote is not always positive. So for us Africans, we would say that Locke wasn't good for us. Then there is Marx. Marx's philosophy is dialectical materialism. And The impact of Marx is that he inspired the anti-colonial revolutions. Those of you who are familiar with the scene, the African scene, will no doubt have noted how Marx was a big influence, not only in Africa but in Europe as well, in the USS, what became USSR, the 1917 revolution in Russia, and then we came to the end of the chapter, if you recall. The problem we were faced with was that if you look at the history of philosophy from the ancients all the way till today, to our current time, you notice that they were all fighting for transform society. But in the 20th century and today, Western philosophers have abandoned that role, and they become detached. They are not interested in oppression. They are happy to ask the question, what is poverty? And analyze poverty, come up with the theories of poverty, but they're not interested in engaging with real poverty. All of them, including feminism. Feminism, as you know, says women are being oppressed, but have you ever seen any Western feminists going to Ghana or Uganda or Kenya or anywhere and saying we don't like the way the African woman is being oppressed? We need to do something about it. No, they don't. So they are detached from the sufferings, the everyday sufferings of human beings. Or take DRC, for instance. Look at how children are being oppressed there. Children being used to mine cobalt and so on. Have you seen UNICEF, declaring war on that system and saying, no, this can't be good. No, we need to liberate the children. We are UNICEF, United Nations, No. So what you see is complete detachment by Western philosophers or Western philosophy. They've abandoned social justice. So what I have tried to then do is that, okay, so could we then, from the point of view of chapter 2, could we look at how could we reorganize time in order that it gives us a kind of bird's eye view? And so this is what I have done. This is just my proposal of how we can see what has happened from time immemorial till today. And what I have sought to do is to deny that Plato, Aristotle, and all these guys simply dropped from the sky, and then came up with all these wonderful philosophies to liberate their people. I have refused to go down that line because of my level of consciousness. Greek philosophy comes out of African philosophy. All the Greeks, named them, were all educated by Africa. So the idea that somehow they were very clever people who just came up with all these philosophies is not true. And people have written extensively, as you know. Sheikh Anta Diop has written on it. George James has written on it. Bernal has written, Black Athena has written on it. So nobody now disputes this. Nobody now disputes the fact that the Greeks, there was no such thing as a Greek miracle. If there was, it was in the stomach of Africa. It was in the womb of Africa. That's the first era, the African era, Thales, Heraclitus, and so on. Then the Christian era, which is the theocratic oppression, which you recall led to the Reformation and Counter-Reformation. Then we had the Renaissance. And interesting, the Renaissance was when they rediscovered our philosophy, our texts like Euclid and so on and so forth. Then that Renaissance then led to the Enlightenment, and along came the universal lies that Africa didn't contribute anything. And I will dwell on that a little bit later. And then we had the modern era, the freedom fighters, the Nkrumahs, and Nkrumah wasn't the only one, as you know. There were other freedom fighters across the world. You can include people like Marcus Garvey and all of these. I'm only using Nkrumah here as an example. So then we had the modern era, and then finally the ongoing struggle, which is Afrofuturism is combining the past, the present, and the future, like in the film Wakanda, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with, and then the current struggle with neo-colonialism. Now, in terms of this era, then I want to show you something. I don't know whether we realize that Orunmila, the Yoruba philosopher, was a contemporary of Socrates. Yeah, Tahotep was a contemporary of Thales. Imhotep, Kemet, was a contemporary of Pythagoras. Euclid, Alexander, was a contemporary of Aristotle. Look at the Christian era. Plotinus, Augustine of Hippo, was a contemporary of Augustine. Yeah, and you can see Boethius, yeah, Eurocentric, was a contemporary of Dionysius. Then when you come to the Renaissance, philosophers like Zira Jacob is a contemporary of Descartes. I'm sure you've never heard about these people, some of these people. Ahmed Baba of Timbuktu was a contemporary of Erasmus. This is the Renaissance era. When you come to the Enlightenment era, Kant and Leibniz, Anton Wilhelm Amo, that we come across, was a contemporary of Kant and Leibniz. In fact, Amo criticized their philosophies. Olado Iquiano was a contemporary of Locke. Yeah, but they claim that he is a slave narrative. Only Locke was a philosopher. Amo is not a philosopher. Oh, no. He's been excluded from academia curricula. All you hear is Kant and Leibniz. If I go back rather than go forward, if I go back to the Renaissance, Zera Jacob is dismissed as ethnophilosophy. Ahmed Baba, he is an Islamic scholar, so he's not included. If you go back again to the Christian era, Augustine of Hippo, well, he's a Mediterranean. And Mediterraneans, they're all olive skin somehow. They're not Africans, they're not black. And so on. If you go back even to the African era, what I call the African era, we have, even though Socrates wrote nothing, Socrates was an oral philosopher, just like Orunmila. I don't know if you are all aware of that. And yet, Socrates is seen as part of the written canon, and Orunmila is not. Yeah. And people like Kemet, Kemet is all proto-Stoic, those are Stoics, and so on and so forth. So you can see the racism, the Eurocentrism, and so on. And when you come to the modern era, even though Sheikh Anta Diop has done a lot of work, and remember, Diop is a contemporary of Foucault and Derrida. Yeah, and he's dismissed as, he's too controversial. And when Kwame Nkrumah released Constantism, they say, he didn't. Some of us say he didn't write it. They say it was written by Jews or by an Israeli. That's what some people said. In fact, African philosophy departments ignored it. They didn't take it seriously. Now, this was prior to the big debate in Nigeria about what is African philosophy. And yet Nkrumah was a contemporary of Sartre and Camus. Anyway, so we are in the ongoing struggle. Professor Oluwole was a contemporary of Chomsky. She's now passed away. But those of you who know, she basically wrote the book on Orunmila. But again, because Orunmila was a contemporary of Socrates, and yet somehow anything that Professor Sophie had to say didn't matter. In fact, there were professors in Nigeria who dismissed Orunmila. So we have even Africans who are dismissing our own work. So this is an example of what has been going on. So you have textual supremacy, identity realignment, and epistemic marginalization. So what I've been saying in the last few minutes will appear to be shifting the focus a little from what Nkrumah said in chapter 2, which are, these are the list of philosophers, 18 of them, from Thales all the way. And this is what they said in order to interrogate power and to lead the transformation of society. Yeah, so it appears that I'm shifting slightly from there. But the reason I brought these up is to draw your attention to the fact that if you look at all these philosophers, they had what you might call African contemporaries, but we don't hear of them because of what you might call Hellenism. So Hellenism is the idea that Africans didn't contribute anything. We contributed nothing. We just wasted everybody's time, and that it was this. There was a Greek miracle, and so they wrote off Africa's contribution to civilization. But as you're all aware, this has now been corrected to a large extent. Nobody now disputes that Egypt, ancient Egypt, is part of Africa. It used to be, disputed even by leading scholars, but today nobody now disputes that. So here I have a kind of a table of the same epoch, the 6 epochs I would call them, the African thinkers, the Eurocentric counterparts, what they sought to do, and what Constantism does or will do. I won't go into it too much, but if you are interested, we do share these things. Apart from the fact that it will be on YouTube. If you want to speak to us, by us I mean this class, not just me, feel free to. And this message is to all those who watch our YouTube as well. If you want to interrogate these things, please do. I did say I will whisk through this very quickly. So when we came to the last page of chapter 2, we came face to face with Western failure. They used our philosophies to liberate themselves. Let's be clear about that. The Renaissance was our philosophy which they used, and yet when it came to our turn to be liberated, they were not interested anymore. Yeah, they were not interested. They were more interested in word games than in dealing with real issues. So our mandate now is to interrogate power, like the IMF and so on. Reject Hellenist lies, like Job's Civilization of Barbarism, that book. Reject them, and then we need to build movements. And some of the movements that have been built
Brother Kwame, are you speaking?
The Raspala has sought to draw our attention to that future as well, where technology comes to the heart of things. So this is our task today, that are we going to follow Western philosophers, or are we going to take up the banner, the struggle, like our contemporaries have done? In fact, you might say our fathers have done, our fathers and mothers have done, the Fanons and the Nkrumahs and the Garveys and so on, and fight. So that is it. So that is it. So to summarize, the key message in chapter 2 is that philosophy has always sought to interrogate power and transform society. And that task continues today, and it is for us as Africans to lead a new movement. The anti-colonial movement was a global, as you know. The reparations movement is also a global movement. We don't find Africans too much involved. There is a lot of attempt to get African elites, that is, to get involved in the reparations movement. Hopefully that will catch on. But whatever it is, we need a movement that will capture the imagination of Africa. Some have seen the recent Traore, the AES, as some kind of attempt to capture Africa's imagination and move the continent forward. But we will see. But the key message is that that's what philosophy does. It interrogates power. It then seeks to transform society. It is a weapon to either challenge power or create a new reality. And that is the task we are faced with. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brother Kwame. It's brief but very heavy, heavily loaded. But I hope not heavier than the text we do study. But thank you, Brother Kwame. So, comrades, Brother Kwame has provided to us a review of the Consciousness book, probably chapter 2 that we'll be looking at for some time now. And yes, he has presented this thinking, as he says, always is thinking. But I see why sometimes people say he's the professor of consciousness, because indeed he has connected the dots of various personalities and names that I've never come across. So I'll open up the floor for members here to engage Brother Kwame, but also to share your thinking, having been part of the class. What message do you think you picked from chapter 2? What do you think about the chapter 2 in general? So thank you very much. I'll start by Sir Windhoek, who's hand this up, and then we'll go to all members who are available. Sir Windhoek?
Brother Kwame, you say
Yes, sir.
Greek philosophers were not white. Were
I'm
they
saying,
black?
I'm saying let us desist from assuming that they had white skin. They were white Caucasian males. That is what I'm saying.
So were they black?
Sorry?
Were they black?
Some of them were, yes.
Okay. And predominantly, most of them were taught by Africans.
Well, we don't know of any that wasn't.
Okay.
We don't know of any Greek philosopher that didn't come to Africa to study.
Okay.
All the big names, they all came to Africa to study. But the Hellenist movement sought to write off Africans' contribution to civilization in total. And so, and this is what George James sought to tell us in his book Stolen Legacy. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. It did.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Elder Sam.
Good evening, everybody, and Brother Kwame, thanks for the presentation. I'm raising my hand urgently because the last part, Brother Kwame, where you basically explain what philosophy must mean to us. I think that is critical. I'm not sure whether you have captured it anywhere where you have made this summary. If not, I would like to have that, just as you summarize it at the end, what philosophy means to us. I think it has many pointers that we can work with. Thanks.
Yeah, Brother Sam, I liked your contribution. You remember last week when we were discussing, you made a point,
Yes.
and correctly, that Nkrumah appeared to be focusing on what we see as Western philosophers, and that there were other philosophers that we need to look at. So,
yes.
so I took on board your point, bearing in mind that Nkrumah does bring other philosophers to our attention,
Philosopher.
like Amu. Amu was a big Amu was a big name in Germany at the time. I mean, so but we don't hear of him because of Eurocentrism. So I had sought to bring in the other philosophers so you can see how some of them were contemporaries of Caucasians. Even challenge them. But we don't hear of that when people are mentioning the philosophers. So yes, I accept what you are saying. Let's work together to bring that together for us. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Raspala. Anunnaki.
Yes, my Lord. Give thanks, Son of the Lake. Thanks to everybody at large. Yes, my brother. My comments is basically what the elder was saying here and read. Those histories, those different histories from African to Afrofuturism. For me, they are well articulated. What I can say is that with all these different eras, what is common in this is that the African are the most common denominator in all of this. They are the master creators of all of this thing. So Karl Marx and them, they just got the blueprints from us. That's what I'll say for now. Thank you.
Brother Kwame, do you want to comment on that? And please, Brother Kwame, if you can be able to maintain your, I wanted you to bring back your screen.
Yeah, I think if anything, Brother Raspala is one of our members who keeps reminding us of the far past and the far future. And we will recall that we said that Africans tend to isolate themselves in terms of how they see the world. Some tend to focus more on the past. I'm not saying it as a criticism. I'm just saying that that's what some do, and they specialize on that, which we need specialists anyway. So that's okay. And then there are Africans who focus on the now, today, or the contemporary present. And then there are Africans who focus on the future. And what you find is that most of those who focus on the present are political leaders who are only interested in their pocket, their families today. They are not conscientized enough to link the past with the present, and they are not interested in asking, where is Africa going? So if you take Ruto of Kenya, or if you take Mahama of Ghana, you don't hear them talking about how they want Africa to evolve. Yes, there is Agenda 2063, but that is, do you know of any single African leader that champions 2063 in the same way that Gaddafi championed Pan-Africanism? I don't see it. Does anybody see it? I don't. So I think what Brother Raspala means for us is that in stressing Afrofuturism is to say that we have to use African philosophy to unify the past, the present, and the future. And we have to do it in such a way that we capture the imagination, especially of the youth, so that they can help build a new Africa tomorrow. If you like, the Wakanda of tomorrow. Because Western capitalism has already concluded that the current world is the best. They have no interest in changing anything. Global white supremacy has concluded that there's nothing to. This is the best for them, and the MAGA movement of America is interested in making America great again. Not great tomorrow, but great again. Now, the greatness that they talked about, when we look at that greatness, what was it? It was genocide, when they killed all the Amerindians, enslaved our people, and so on, and built. In fact, we built the civilization. They then claim credit for, and so on, and that for us is not greatness. So the point I'm making is that global white supremacy capitalist system is not interested in building any new future. So let's be clear, they want to dominate Russia and turn Russia into microstates. They want to go to war with China, so China never develops. They as for Africa, they think we are where they want us to be, because the African elites really have given up, haven't they? They're not doing anything to challenge anything. So they have given up, right? So the system today is about domination. They just want to dominate everyone so that they can continue to steal resources and so on. So we can't look up to them. There's nothing. They can't offer us anything. Nothing. So Afrofuturism is very important. I'm hoping that Brother Raspala will talk more about that later. Not necessarily in this session, but on one of our Saturday sessions. And yeah, Brother Pigeon, I think I will end that response.
Thank you. Brother Coco? Brother Coco? Thank you, Brother Kwame. Brother Coco, come in.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Am I audible? Oh, thank you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Greetings all. Greetings, my brothers. Yeah, I was going to say that you hadn't answered my brother Dadimutau's question, unless you did, in a way, maybe by putting the screen up. Okay. What I would like also you to do is to share the document with us, so we know what you've been presenting, which is
it's already presented. It's already with you. When the YouTube, so when the video is shared, it will be there. But if you want me to share the PowerPoint
in the chat, that would be nice if we can do that.
Fine.
Okay,
that's fine. Yeah.
So we will be presenting the part 2 of our Ubuntu session, and we're looking towards the end of this month, so that the 26th. And me delving deeper into that, I am in touch with creation. I'm in touch with the Africanness. And I'm seeing for the first time just how everything about an African is Ubuntu. Is balance. Is Ma'at. In fact, Ubuntu, because it's not just about humans, which most of us wrongly assume. It's about nature. It's about the human's relation to nature and environment, and also includes spirituality. You find that everything is encapsulated in Ubuntu, which they came and said to us, you are backwards, you are uncivilized, and we stopped appreciating what we had. And reading some of the texts of great writers like Ramosi, and who I'm happy I saw you put him up there, and knowing people that I know from back home, I'm surprised that we don't write. That's the thing. We don't write as Africans. We live Ubuntu. We are Ubuntu. And Ubuntu is about, it's not just doing things, it's about being. And it goes back to what the human being is. You're called a human being because you have a consciousness to determine what is right from wrong and do what is right away from what's wrong, which is different from what other creatures don't. So Ubuntu is about that. It's about consciousness. So conscientism is not complete without Ubuntu. Consciousness is not complete without African philosophy. And I know it's early days, we are still going through, and it's important we go the distance because learning, it never stops. It never stops. It's good to understand what all of these other philosophers were doing. It's good to understand the scam which we have been put through, because it hasn't just been philosophy, it has been religion, it has been governance, it has been education itself. So it's really important that we as Africans understand just how great we are. It's just that we don't shout over the rooftops about how great we are. And I just want to remind all of you how important that is. And I was reading from Mother Teresa about her experience of the Eastern life and the Western life. That in the West, we are busy trying to accumulate things. But where she was living in India, she said she would find Indians sitting down. They could sit for days talking. And that's that. They're giving people attention. They're giving people love. And I think that's where the African is coming from. It's coming from a position of love where they love their neighbors, they love their children, they love their parents, they love everyone. And I think this is where we went wrong. We were teaching love to people who don't know anything about love. But we now have to understand what love is, because Ubuntu is about love. And we have to start from that position of self-love, and I think we will conquer. We will persevere. Let me say that. Thank you very much for this moment.
With a comment?
Yeah, brother, looking young as always, Brother Koko. Brother Koko, I will disagree slightly with you on the question of philosophy. You see, the whole point of conscientism is to argue that there is no such thing as a hierarchy of human beings. That there is no, if you like, pyramid where there is this human being that is superior or better than another human being. And that we all come from the same matter. All human beings on this planet, if you break down their chemical composition, you get the same chemical composition. In that sense, therefore, we are all equal. And that is Ubuntuism, to use that word. So what Nkrumah is saying is that in this chapter is that if you look at the history of philosophy, as far back as the Yoruba philosopher Orunmila, who was mythologized, whereas they never mythologized Socrates, right? If you look at the whole point of philosophy was to interrogate power and transform society. And it's the same with Ubuntuism. Ubuntuism today, what shall we use it for? We shall use it to interrogate society, to interrogate power, and transform society. Right? So in that sense, it falls into chapter 2. And remember, chapter 2 builds on chapter 1. Right? So I am suggesting to you that don't see Ubuntuism as separate from the conscientists message. Yeah, don't see it as different, as separate, as other. It is part of the same, if you like, message that we Africans at the end of chapter 2 need to not follow the West, but use philosophy for our purpose. So I think that's what I would say in response to what you said about what you said that seemed to imply that Ubuntuism is different from conscientism. The final thing I would say is that if you look at communalism.
Can I come in before you go into communalism?
Yes, you can.
And clarify myself.
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
said delving into Ubuntu. And again, let me correct you, it's not Ubuntuism. It doesn't have ism to it. It's Ubuntu as it is. It's the way, if I had to explain this, because there's no direct translation in English. Humaneness probably is the best way to say. It contains everything. It contains all that you need. So conscientism, in trying to return the African to Ubuntu, it also derives from Ubuntu. So there's no way that they'll be separate. I talked a lot, I guess. Maybe I ended up twisting myself in my words. But my opening statement, I said, Ubuntu is not just about humans or their relations with one another. It's also about humans and their relations with nature, their relations with animals, plants, environment, and spirituality. So to me, Ubuntu is everything. Our education came from Ubuntu because we were educated to understand how to treat everyone equally. And our governance came from Ubuntu because if we say Morena, ke Morena ka setšhaba, it sounds more or less like motho ke motho ka batho, because in that we are saying a leader can only be a leader by the virtue of the people he or she represents. So you start to peel it one by one. You realize that it contains everything that you need. Thank you.
Rakoko, it doesn't contain everything. That's my point. It doesn't contain everything because the universe existed before human beings arrived. You see, this universe, existed long before human beings arrived. When we arrived, Brother Raspala has been trying to explain to us that there was a point when there were no certain human beings, and then they were created and so on, that the Anunnaki came from Siberia and so on. That's the point, Brother Coco. Ubuntu is not everything. Ubuntu is about humanity, humanness. The human being is not the only, if you like, living entity in this universe, right? And even if you say that, even if you say that it is our relationships with the land, with the forest, and so on. Well, there are grasshoppers in the forest. We are not grasshoppers. We are humans. Grasshoppers are grasshoppers. Snakes are snakes. And there are different, the family of snakes are a complete study in terms of biology. So what I'm saying is that Ubuntu is not everything. I hear what you are saying. I understand what you are trying to say, but that is the whole point. Up until the heliocentric proposition, up until there, the contention was that the earth was the center of the universe and man was at that center. Right? That was the argument. Came from the Africans, by the way. The Eurocentric people then removed the black man and woman from the center and put the Caucasians at the center. And even God became white. And the center of the universe that we must all worship was this Caucasian image, because they thought that was everything. I am suggesting to you, Brother Coco, that it is not everything. And what consciousness is telling us is that we need to step back and look at the universe as a whole, as a totality, right? Whether it has an outside or an inside, look at all that and so on. And starts from the position that the universe in which we live, right? Apart from the fact it is millions and millions and millions of years old, and man only arrived yesterday in terms of time, as you know, yeah, there are planets that takes our Earth rotates around the sun in 365 days, yeah, but there are other planets that take over 500 years. So we are just a drop in the ocean, and that is the point, that we need to step back and liberate ourselves from the narrow global white supremacist viewpoint, to which, you remember, even colonized the earth and disrespected the earth. And Coco, you know the story, how they filled the ocean with plastics, and beings in the sea were dying, and so on and so forth, and how they polluted the atmosphere with carbon dioxide, to the extent that now we had global warming, which had to be reined back. So I am suggesting to you that Nkrumah is telling us that is not everything. And if it was everything and we had the answer, why did what happened to us happen to us? Right? They came to our land. They stole it. They imposed things on us and lied to us. So I'm suggesting, Brother Coco, that Ubuntu is not everything. Ubuntu is part of the answers, but it's not everything. And consciousness continues to remind us that let's start from the universe in which we live. When you're looking at life, don't start from humanity. Go beyond humanity. And Brother Raspala, I mentioned Brother Raspala again because he keeps reminding us that even humanity as we understand it is not all of it. That there was some kind of whether you want to call it humanity or some kind of beings, and the Zulus believe that they came from the planets. They came from another. I hear the word Zulu itself means that they came from a different planet, and so on and so forth. So I'm saying that consciousness is reminding us that we need to look beyond just man, and not limit everything to the human being, as if in the way in which global white capitalism has done, to the extent that even our planet became threatened, because everything had to be about us. Why? Who are we? What do we think? Why do we think everything has to be about us? What about the grasshoppers? What about the insect? What about the snakes? What about the land? What about the oak tree? Do they not matter? It's not just about relationships with them. So,
Okay, thank you.
so philosophy must, if you like, we need to use philosophy to fight for a new world in which the African can also thrive. But right now we are not thriving, are we? Some people are thriving. As you speak, other people are being killed because they are women and children who don't have 500-pound bombs. So they are being slaughtered.
Okay. Brother Kwame, thank you. I know we'll be having a session on Ubuntu on 26, as Brother Coker suggested and requested. So we'll get to learn more about that. But let me go to Sister Ida. Please share your thinking in regards to the chapter we've been reading about philosophy and society. What did you pick up? Was your thinking, or even what Brother Kwame summarized? You feel free to engage it. Sister Ida?
Thank you. I love what Brother Kwame has been sharing with us today, because all those most weeks we hear of a new philosopher, and they're always European philosophers. But this week, though we've heard about Amo before, this week he's told us names of quite a few African philosophers, which I think are always missing. I mean, if I were to ask myself, who's an African philosopher today, I don't know that I could give you a name. I could give you names of people who are on YouTube telling us all sorts of things about the world, like say Professor Lumumba. Anyway, Lumumba, thank you, Professor Lumumba. But you know, I mean, these are people who are talking. I couldn't tell you any books he's written, and I love what Brother Coco said about people writing books, because I think that's what is really missing. And I often tell people who, you know, if I've ever been at a gathering where they're talking, and I think, wow, this is an outstanding presentation someone has given out, I often say to them, you need to write a book, you need to write about it. And I think that's the difference between, like say, Kwame Nkrumah has written so many books and people can go back to it. I think books are very important, but half the time it does, you know, people are not writing that history so that you can go back to it and say, oh, look, this person said such and such. You just hear, and all that is often how people manage to, I think, how people manage to try and say Africans have not done anything, or Africans this or that, even though there was this great library in Alexander and stuff like that. More often than not, recently, you don't hear of writers. And I think that's why sometimes people remain hidden. So I love the fact that you have put down names, and people can use it to go back and try and find about those people. And I love the fact that you've told us that philosophy is about interrogating power and transforming society. Because I think a lot of people who come to listen to things on a Thursday, they might get challenged as to their views, what they think they've heard or whatever. But I don't think that it automatically transforms into people interrogating power. We're encouraged to interrogate what we've read and to have a view and actually state a view, which is, I think, is you don't always get in society today. But those are the main things I can say. But I thank you for today's presentation and the things that you have put down in writing, because I'm going to come back and look at them. Thank you.
No, thank you. Brother Pigeon, is it okay for me to respond to that?
I wanted to clarify only one thing before you respond.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think there's been, of course, that narrative that Africans don't write. Of course, we might not be writing much as maybe they write, but at the end of the day, it must also be noted that when we started the library, we have actually realized, because during my research, we have realized that there are many books written by Africans. Ghana alone, I've gone through the people who have written books, and the books available in Ghana that are equivalent to almost 13,000 books. Or some might have been written by other people about Ghana, but majority of those books written from Ghana are by Ghanaians, almost over 13,000 books. So far in our library, we have over close to 5,000 books, and I will tell you 80 to 90% of those books are written by Africans. The only thing that lacks sometimes is that they don't present it for us, or they don't tell us about it, or they don't put it somewhere so that we can learn about them. They're always hidden somewhere. Who knows how many books Nkrumah has written? People even didn't know that this consciousness is Nkrumah writing. Nkrumah alone has written over 15 books. So it's not that much of us we are not writing, but of course, we still have to write, because I emulate the example that Nkrumah as a president sit down and write books. Being a president and still write books, over 10 of books. And today we have African president who live out power with writing nothing at all. So I think it's also a challenge, but it's also something that we must demystify, that we don't write, we write. But Kwame, you can come in.
Yeah, no.
Before Brother
No, thank
Kwame
you.
comes in, let me ask you: are those all modern books, or are they ancient? When I say ancient, 50 to 100 years old.
Yeah, I have books that have been written by Africans looking back to hundreds of years old. Kemet books, Ethiopian books, Nile books, Timbuktu books, and all those other books. They might have been written by current writers, but most of them were written towards what went in the long period. The books written about slavery and slavery have been written by Africans, and those are years to go. So it's a balance of the books. You see, like the earliest writers, Brother Kwame has put here, the likes of Socrates and the rest, before they even came to learn and to be taught in African universities, who wrote the books that they were used to be teaching them? Who wrote them? It was Africans, because we taught them in Timbuktu, we taught them in Ethiopia, we taught them in Kemet. Who wrote the books that used to teach them? That's what they don't tell you about.
Well, I did mention the library in Alexander and things like that. So it's not that I'm not saying, that's why I was asking you, the books that you have, are they modern people, or are they over 50 years old? I don't think a lot of people are writing today.
Yeah, I think I think it's a mixture.
Okay.
I think you make a good point, brother, Sister Ida, because the point you are drawing our attention to is something Brother Marcus Garvey also mentioned. There is a you might call it a myth that Africans don't read. That if you want to hide something from Africans, put it in a book. I don't know if you've heard that. People have said that. And then there is also the allegation that Africans don't write. And I have myself been critical of someone like John Jerry Rawlings of Ghana, who came to office in 1982 and left office at about 1992, I believe, and left us, joined the ancestors, and never wrote a single book. Not a single book. We have Traore in office. Will he write a book? So we have Africans who leave and they take the history with them. They don't leave the history behind. So there is that criticism, which I think is valid. And then there's a criticism that we're not reading enough, which I also think is valid. But as our ancestors say, there is Kwame everywhere. Yeah, there is Mensa everywhere. So this this not reading thing is not just an African thing. It has also class connotations. If you write in English and the people don't understand English, can't read English. How do they read your work? I mean, how many of us read works in Chinese or in Russian or in German? We can't, because we don't understand the language and we can't read the language. And some of the texts are like writing in German, and people who can read it are only people who can speak and write the language and can read the language. So Sister Ida, you have a point, as has Brother Pigeon. Yeah, so the point here for us in this chapter is that if you take Ubuntu, yeah, as a philosophy, there are Africans who live it. You know, it's not just a book. It is expressed in the life and the beliefs of African nationalities. They live it. It's part of their existence. So you can capture it in the book, but it's something that they live and breathe. It hasn't become a major policy, basis for policy, in the same way as, for instance, communalism or socialism, that is rooted in communalism, should become policy, state policy. It hasn't, because they haven't managed to capture power yet. Yeah, but as a way of life, they already live it. So one of the things we need to do is to capture it and lead. So yeah, Brother Pigeon, I think that's all I would say with respect to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sister Mera?
Thank you, Brother Pigeon. My apologies, I came late, but I came at the tail end of Brother Kwame's summary, and a very, very interesting presentation. I'm glad and thank you in advance that you're going to share the slides. And as Brother Kwame was talking, the only thing I could think of, the thought that was foremost in my mind, was that one day African philosophy will be taught in Al-Qabilan and in the diaspora, and we'll have African philosophy schools. And I hope that one day it will be a requirement for leaders to have done a course in African philosophy, if they're going to sit on a council, if they're in kingdoms, if they're in chiefdoms. I think it's.
Samara,
yes,
it's already been taught,
but it's not being practiced.
But
it's and left in the book.
It's been taught, you see, but they have disguised it as Greek philosophy.
So that should be it should be.
Yeah,
it should be correctly.
Yeah, everything that Plato, Aristotle, all of them, what they were writing have basically, this is the point of George James, George James, that these are just stolen African knowledge systems. So what needs to be corrected is when you write, you need to give credit to the author that you quote, you see. Yes. And they have refused as policy not quote Africa and to acknowledge Africa as their fathers and mothers. That is the problem. But the philosophy is being taught. But I think Sister Tapua, was it Sister Tapua?
Sister Ida.
No, not today. Sister Tapua some time ago. No, it wasn't Sister Tapua. It was another sister. Brother Pigeon, I don't know if you remember.
Sister Chisoma, perhaps.
No, not Sister Chisoma. It was another sister who joined us in one of the meeting. Then she disagreed with her. She said that they are not our philosophy because they've changed it and have weaponized it against us. So they are not our philosophy. I don't know if you remember. Anyway, let me pause there.
But what I meant was that I want to see Zara Jacob, Anton Amo Willem, Sophie Oluwale.
Mm.
I want to see those African names in the classrooms, in the lecture room. And yes, you're right. And the acknowledgement of what the Europeans have stolen, that should also be rectified in our young people's minds. And also have African thinkers and philosophers in the textbooks, in the lecture rooms, in the classrooms. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Mera. I'll get back to you, Sir Windhoek and Jaranunaki. Briefly, before I go to in my list, we have Sister Tapua and Brother Barry, and also Brother Glenn will be able to share the thing. So briefly to you, Brother Sir Windhoek, and then if you allow me from Windhoek, let me go to Tapua, and then I'll come back to Raspala. Windhoek?
No, it's just a petty question to Brother Kwame. He says the President Rawlings did not write anything. Didn't he write even a biography about himself?
No.
Oh, that's so sad. But at least
we kept asking and asking. As you know, Rawlings is from my part of Ghana. Yeah, we come from the same. His mother comes from the same ethnicity as myself. So, but his father is from Scotland, and so in my language we say he's our mother's son, Mia Noviu. Yeah, but you see, we kept asking and asking, and we're told yes, he's writing it. Yeah, then we are yet to see it, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Tapua. Okay, let me go to Brother Barry. Then I'll come to Raspala. Brother Barry? Brother Barry, are you ready? Brother Barry, are you ready? Okay. Sister Myra, your hand is up.
Just so you know, Brother Barry, I don't know if it is from Guyana, and you know, Walter Rodney is from Guyana, Guyanese. So Brother Barry is very aware of that contribution from that end. Yeah, I'm sure if he wants to say something, he's happy to share. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Brother Barry, please, anytime you want to share something, feel free to unmute yourself and come in. Sister Myra?
It's not too important. I just wanted to kind of make a small clarification. When I said the African thinkers and philosophers to be taught in schools, I was strictly talking about the Al-Qabilan and diaspora schools. The Europeans may continue to lie to themselves, but we shall make the corrections to our people and youth and children. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Brother Barry, are you ready to speak? Or Jaranunaki, you can come in.
Yes, my brother. Yeah. Okay, I was gonna come in on that thing of Ubuntu. Also to expound more on it. The name itself, Ubuntu, if we can remember, comes from the primordial mother of the Anunnaki or the black people on earth, which is Antu. So Ubuntu basically, we can say on a deeper level, is the behavior or the principalities of Antu, the godmother of the blacks. That is basically where the name comes from. Hence Bantu, which is the people of Antu. You see? So yeah, these things, man, it's not things that came from white people. It's really something that we had, and then they were institutionalized. Hence, I was saying when I said earlier on that these eras that up to Sheikh Anta Diop and the ongoing struggle now, it's not necessarily eras of Africans, but it's eras of the white people, because we already had reached the highest peaks long ago. So it was just we keep starting over. Yeah, well, otherwise we already reached the peaks of all these things, to be honest. And then these people, these African philosophers, are basically reminding us of what we had in the past. So yeah, it's not something amazing, but yeah, it's something that we already had. Thank you.
Hello, Elder Glenn is gone. So, Brother Barry, it's you remaining to speak. Brother Barry, if you are still not in a position, when Brother Elder Glenn come in, you'll be able to share his thinking. Sister Tapua, I know you said that we should excuse you a bit. If that's the case, then permit me also to share my thinking, if I'm allowed. Or Brother Kwame can still come in.
Sorry, what are you saying, brother Pigeon?
I'm saying I'm left with Brother Barry, and now he has unmuted himself. Please, Elder Barry, go ahead.
Hello.
We can hear you. Go ahead, Elder Barry.
Pigeon, Barry will speak when Barry wants to speak, so don't worry. When Barry wants to speak, he will let you know. So it's fine. You can carry on.
Okay, I'm just saying he's unmuted, but yeah, speak when you want to speak, please. Having said that, to me, I'll share something brief in this chapter 2, because it is philosophy and society. So one thing I get from the beginning of this chapter 2 is that it seems that our philosophy do not just operate, our society do not just operate alone. They operate on some philosophies. I don't think most of us knew that our society operates in some philosophies. And it was quite interesting to get to learn this. But again, you look at some of the philosophical thinking, as you have mentioned, when we started Socrates a bit, Socrates in this chapter 2, when we are trying to look at how his thinking was to challenge the societal order, which means philosophy in one way also should be able to challenge the existing structure in a society. So we look at Socrates briefly as he's trying to bring some equality of men, that it's not about, and I think we ran it sometimes back, that it's not about the difference in functional level of human being in a society, but it's rather about the intrinsic worthiness of human beings. So we see he's trying to challenge issues of slave, and he brings that his concept of Meno, which I think Plato is quoting, where he's trying to prove to the society that even a slave boy is capable of solving some of the hard mathematical questions or hard tasks in a society. This then asks me back to my society today and the society we live. Do we really view people as equal? Irrespective of the work they do, irrespective of where they survive on, irrespective of their gender, irrespective of their ethnicity. Because in the continent today, we are still running this hierarchy, which I think Plato also introduced a bit in what you call elitism in that society. And I know Nkrumah talked against elitism in some of his books, if you can remember, especially in his book, Class Struggle in a Society. Nkrumah talks heavily on elitism. So I'm seeing an element of what Socrates was trying to plant in a society vis-a-vis what Plato was trying to prove in a society. And I think then out of philosophy and what we learn here is that if we believe on the fundamental equality of beings, as Nkrumah mentioned to us and informed us in the first chapter, that we all come from the same matter, then I think if we take that view, we cannot be having the problems we have in Africa today. We cannot be having a situation whereby the Rwandese are killing the Congolese, where the children are subjected to some slavery or some inhumane torture, We could have not even experienced the so-called enslavement period in the continent if we were to view each other to be intrinsically equal in terms of their worthiness rather than their functional appearance or differences. We could not be having Black Lives Matters today where people judge you by the skin color, that you are inferior or weak because of your skin color. We could not be having what you have in homicides and feminism that's coming up, claiming that women all need equal rights. Because if we could understand that gender, age, skin color, and whatever it takes doesn't mean that we are different intrinsically. And what Brother Kwame will say, in genetical makeup, if you try to bring down the body of a human being, there's nobody who's a lesser being. And I think this element of creating each other to be less human is the mentality that the whites use at base to come up to Africa in the name of they want to civilize us, while we actually civilized them before even they knew who they were. Because they came and brought all their civilization, and in fact, they never came to civilize, they came to steal our civilization. So that's the first thing I'm seeing. And I'm seeing that if we want to attain the unification of Africa and the continent, we must first of all believe that every African and every Black person is equal, irrespective of their class they have attained in terms of education. They're all equal beings, and we could treat them equally. And that way we will not have the minority in the United States of Africa vis-a-vis the majority. When we give each person equal chance to rule, to lead, to exercise their ability without infringing them, because you realize that also differences in functional differences in a society are caused by natural issues and sometimes are man-made. What makes me be a teacher, or what makes you be a doctor, or what makes you be whoever you are, or a farmer, is not sometimes what you choose. It's sometimes, as we say, our universe is a natural universe. But again, I'll go again to what we also learn in this chapter about what Plato brings in as far as elitism and class is concerned. Plato makes his argument that education then makes us not equal. In fact, he used an example of education. And that's still the difference here. So in fact, Plato believed to some extreme ends that there were some people come from the royal blood and they must be separated and kept aside for only rulership. And that they are the pure breeds or anything like that that should be allowed to rule over and over. I think this is the concept of the royal families. There are some families think that they are born more better and more equal to be more royal. And we have experienced it even today, continent of Africa, where some presidents have been passing over the leadership to their family and family and family. You remember Omar Bongo and the rest of the families. We still experiencing today in Swaziland where also the kingship is still has to be passed over to the same society and family. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that Plato's mentality. I don't think there's more people are more royal than others in a society. I don't think that the value of one being educated and one not being educated should be a measure to separate us as people. And I think Africa still suffers elitism, as Nkrumah stated in his book, Class Struggle. And until we get out of elitism or elitist mentality, we will not work together as a people. So until we realize that whoever got education, or whoever is educated, his education should be for the purpose that Nkrumah went to pursue education for the purpose of liberation and emancipating the people, to help change the welfare of the people. But until when people still think that education they have is for the purposes of them being liberal or conservatives, it's about their own self, then that becomes a big problem in a society. Then I have now another issue with what Socrates is presenting to us in this chapter 2 on the society, when Socrates believed that some people are born natural slaves. I don't know, and I don't think that runs with what is our basic core of all human being being equal. So if we are all equal and come from the same matter, how could one was born naturally a slave? Those are the challenges we are getting in between. But I'm also seeing the element of church trying to balance what they are saying. And I think that's why we need to discuss the church. Because the church with society is still present up to date. The church still want to control the society. The church still want to talk what the society should be doing. And this, we are seeing it even in early days, when the church believe and trying to change the, you remember what we learn in this chapter that Aristotle tried to bring back the forms to the earth, the forms that were put heavenly by Plato, and so that they could be accessible by all. So all these things, I'm seeing them and I'm trying to learn how the society is moving. And there was another point that the society is not static. Neither do we have a perfect society. How do that then synchronize to the society we want to look as an Africa, for the purpose of decolonizing our society. If the society is not perfect, and neither is it static, how do we then as a people try to get in touch and maneuver and adapt to changes in society? Changes that have come in like AI, this technology of today's society, the generation X or the generation Z that we have in the society. How do we marry this to ensure that we still maintain the basic cause of our society? So those are a few things I've come across this, but I've also liked the element when we discuss heavily about individualism in a society versus egalitarianism. And I'm reminded of the book we are reading by George Haiti about defeating dictators, that in the Western mentality, it's all about from individual to society. When the African setup is from society to individual. It's society that gives back to an individual. Therefore, an individual is a part of the society. But in the other side of their thinking, they think that individual is what makes the society. No. It's the society that brings back individual. We are a product of our society. So the society still have responsibility on this. So when you learn individualism, there's elements of egalitarianism, which I think can also marry to what Brother Coco talks about Ubuntu, in the aspect of egalitarianism and egalitarian society. We learn things to do with social justice in that chapter as well, which is very important to me. We learned about humanism, which was brought by the element of Renaissance as well, if I can remember. I'm trying to jog on many things that I can remember in this chapter. And the element of humanism, which is very important as well as a society we look at today, basing our argument and looking at society from an humanistic approach, is also very important things that I've learned in this chapter. Just to make it short because of time, permit me to pause there. Brother Kwame?
Yeah, Brother Coco, Brother Pigeon. Yeah, it's good you kind of reviewed what you think you've learned, but you need to bring it all together into the central message, which is what do you take from all that you have said. And I think that in doing that, as you also want to stand for president in 2027, you also need to come away from this with a central message. What is the philosophical weapon, or what is philosophy as a weapon that you intend to use for your campaign that will mobilize the Kenyan people? You see, that's why. So you must. I'm not asking you to answer it now. I'm just saying that is what should come out of this chapter for you. And the other thing also is that when we, when people say, and some when people are talking, they say, and we Africans did this or that or that. And sometimes some of the message or the statement appear to be saying that, or implying that Africa is one group, that there are no differences in Africans, a kind of monolithic grouping, But as you and I know, there are liberal Africans and there are conservative Africans and there are radical Africans or progressive Africans. You yourself are a progressive African. Ruto, as you know, is a liberal African. So what you want for Africa is not what Ruto wants for Africa. So this is to say that the differences amongst us as Africans is very real. It's very real, and it may even lead to war. It need not lead to war. It may. You didn't have to have war in Burkina Faso for Traore to come to office. They were able to do what we call a palace coup and remove the previous leader who wasn't following what they had agreed, and then he became the head of state without having to kill anybody. In the same way as Compaoré killed his best friend Sankara to become the president. He didn't have to kill anybody, as far as I know. So, but whether or not there is war, whether or not there are killings, whether or not whatever, however it evolves, the point is that there are serious differences amongst us as Africans. We all don't agree on one thing. And what we want is low-level warfare, which takes place in electoral war. So when there are elections, it's still a form of war, but we try to remove the violence so that the talking and the policy positions will do the talking for us. So nobody should use a gun or a machete and so on. You see, so the point I'm making is that these differences are real. And what this chapter has told us, as we have seen, is that even in as much as John Locke was fighting was setting out his philosophy so that the American colonies became independent from Britain and affirming the US Constitution, even while that was happening, the guy was happy with the colonization of Africa. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? The guy was happy, you know. Brother Barry and I have had differences on this. Even Marx didn't criticize colonialism as far as I am aware. You know, yes, he said workers should unite, but you know, so you have philosophers who will be saying one thing, I'm for this, and yet are for something else. So that happens. It's just a reality. And we need to take that on board. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Elder Glenn, you haven't spoken. Then we'll go to Brother Barry. Elder Glenn, do you have something to share with us? Please, go ahead, Elder. I know you've been having network problem a bit.
He did also say he was listening, so maybe he's busy. So,
Elder Glenn, you're still listening?
Yes, quite a bit. Keep dropping out. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yes.
No, you can't hear me?
We can hear you.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, good. Yeah, no, I have been having yes, thank you. I know, I heard you. I've been having a lot of internet problems, so I've not really heard every single thing, but I wanted to respond to Kwame's reference to philosophers. I think, you know,
Brother Glenn has gone off again. He's back.
Brother Glenn?
Yes, sorry about that. It's probably going to happen. Let me try and quickly say that I understand the point Kwame is trying to make about the philosophers from Greece that came and were educated in Africa. However, I don't think we get any benefit out of that fact. It's a little like reminding people that all life comes from Africa. So I understand the accuracy of it and the correctness of the statement. But I think we ought to think more about whether we gain anything by expressing that. The Kwame Nkrumah's statement about philosophy and their role.
You're gone again, Elder Glenn. Elder Glenn, you've lost you again.
Yeah, whilst he's coming, let me respond to.
We'll allow him to work on him.
Yeah, let me respond to his point, because he's made it before, that we don't benefit from knowing the accuracy of these things. Let's take a practical example. Let's say that your father has built a house in the middle of a city.
Yeah.
That house was built by your grandfather.
I'll leave it there because I'm going to keep dropping out.
Yeah. But Glenn, I was trying to respond to your point about how we don't benefit from the accuracy. So I was giving a practical example. Somebody's grandfather has built a house.
I suspect I'm going to.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep. I'm going to. I was saying I'm going to keep dropping out. There's something wrong with the signal here, but go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, so say somebody's grandfather has built a house in the middle of a city somewhere, an ancient city, and then that knowledge is lost. Nobody knows that this person's grandfather built that house, and this person has been told that he's nothing, his family didn't contribute anything to the city, how he's not even a human being, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. Now, wouldn't you agree that that person coming into knowledge of that historical accuracy, that his grandfather actually founded the city that it is claimed he and his family have never contributed to? That is powerful. That historical knowledge is very powerful. So I would suggest to Brother Glenroy that, I know he's having trouble staying in the meeting. I would suggest to Brother Glenroy that he needs to re-evaluate his position on the importance of history as an ideological tool. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder Glenn. Are you able to finish your second part of what you wanted to ask? We are having 10 minutes to go.
He's still having, he's not in the meeting. He's still having technical challenges. Yeah.
Okay, in the next 10 minutes, probably the last 5 minutes, I'll ask Brother Kwame to do a summary of everything else and a message for us moving forward. But I see Brother Coco hand is up, and I'll let Brother Barry, we are almost coming to an end. So if you like to speak something, please feel free to unmute yourself and speak. Brother Barry? Yes, Brother Coco?
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, in the case of history, for the benefit of our elder Glenroy there, that what they are doing is they are using their own achievements to override our achievements and make, well, what Brother Kwame said is to minimize our achievements or our contributions to society. Hence, it is that internalized oppression or internalized white supremacy that they are using to make the Africans feel inferior to them. Hence, the liberals are those Africans who are still captured by that theory of the whites being superior or Europe being superior than Africa, and Africa having not produced anything. But once we have rediscovered our greatness, rediscovered ourselves, we know for sure where we stand. That's the power of our history in that case. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Coco. Brother Barry? Brother Barry, once more. We're almost coming to an end of this. Elder Glenn, you can finish up your second part of what you wanted to contribute, Elder Glenn and Brother Barry. Those are the two people I'm giving space.
Before I'll try. Okay, I'll try if you can hear me. Please don't misunderstand me. Our philosophy is changing the narrative because we know it's been dishonest and correcting his story. So I'm fully on board with the need to acknowledge and fight the misrepresentation. What I'm concerned about is where we see certain things that might be seen as somehow culturally profitable, i.e., all human beings come from Africa and Africa. So it's correct, but I'm saying we gain nothing by trying to get people to acknowledge that. That's the point I'm trying to make, that it's not a beneficial.
We hear you, Brother Glenn, for that. Let me get to Brother Barry. Barry? Brother Barry? Okay. Okay. Brother Kwame, please come in as you wrap up the presentation. I know you did a summary and a conclusion, but please take us towards the end of this with all chapter 2 and maybe what you anticipate now as we start chapter 3.
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
Sister Tapua. Sorry, Sister Tapua was not
Hello.
able to speak more before. Are you able to speak, Sister
Yes.
Tapua?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
I just
Go
wanted
ahead.
to, hello everyone. Sorry I've not been able to speak much today, but just to respond on the last part that my brother has said that we might not be able to benefit much from the fact that all humanity started in Africa. I think it's very important to raise that point.
Sister Tapua, your network is messing you up. Okay. Sister Tapua? Sister Tapua? Okay. Sister Tapua, we cannot be able to hear you properly based on your network problem. I think you have even dropped out. Sorry for that. But Kwame, we only have 5 minutes. So please, let's just bring it towards the end.
Yeah, so we've read chapter 2. It took us a long time. We have now finished chapter 2, and the conclusion of chapter 2. What we can take from chapter 2 is that we, all philosophers from the beginning, Orunmila or Socrates, all of them up till today, the African position is that philosophy is always a tool for interrogating power and transforming society. It's always been like that. Today, Western philosophers are not interested. But then you could see we can interpret the position of Western philosophers as not wanting to rock the boat or change anything, that they are happy with the current configuration of world power. So you can interpret that is what they want. That's what they're happy with. So then what that means is that we Africans now have to come up with a philosophical position that can galvanize Africa so that we can defeat neocolonialism. And what Nkrumah is proposing is that his philosophy of consensusism is the philosophy that we need. We've seen how consensusism, if you like, energized the anti-colonial movement or the decolonization movement. We saw how it energized the Black consciousness movement in South Africa. We also see how Afrofuturism is also an expression of consensusism. So what we need today is for us in this class to think about how we can craft it in such a way that we can governance Africa for the next struggle. And the struggle we have today is to defeat neocolonialism and gain our economic liberation, our financial liberation, and our monetary liberation. The economic, financial, and monetary liberation, economics in the sense that the economy of Africa is back under our control. Financial in the sense that we stop paying debt, we stop servicing debt, we stop the illicit flows out of Africa, and then monetary liberation in terms of the money in our pockets. That these are what we need today. This is the liberation we need today. We have achieved the political liberation. That is done and dusted. The continent is not under our control. Even your colonialists, are still Africans. So that is the next struggle that is ahead of us. And that is the message of chapter 2. And in chapter 3, we're going to look at how this philosophy should then inform our ideological tools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have come to the end of our session today, and I want to thank everybody else who joined us for today. Brother Kwame, just remind me a bit. On Saturday, it's about
African mining and vision realization.
Okay, thank you.
And I think Brother Anunnaki was going to also speak on mining, the Anunnaki mining. So we thought that would
the gold.
The third part of his presentation. That will sync nicely with the topic for
the gold aspect a bit.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so comrades, the only person who has not been able to speak is Brother Barry. Sister Tapu has faced some challenges alongside Brother Glenn, but we hope next time it will be okay with you. We appreciate, Brother Kwame, your presentation. And as you've said, you might be able to circulate it for us for the purpose of those who are interested to have that summary. And thank you for doing the summary. Indeed, we have taken around 7 months to finish chapter 2. And we have taken so far almost 2 years to do chapter 1 and chapter 2. So that tells you that we are not just in rush. We are doing our studies. We have uploaded so far 230 videos in general, but we have around 120 videos on chapter 1, chapter 2. So thank you very much for those who have joined us. Feel free to always go back to our YouTube channel, have a review of what we've been discussing before, what we're discussing now. And it's good that you have a memory on the library, on the YouTube, so that anybody else in the future can say, come back and listen to these people. Maybe we'll be the great philosophers by then. They'll come back and listen to what we're sharing here. So without much ado, permit me to bring this meeting to an end. All the recordings of last week will be available, and all this recording will be available by next week. So thank you very much for that. And we're looking forward to more productive engagement as we move to chapter 3. Have a blessed evening to you all.
Good night. Take care. Bye.
Thanks.
Good night. Yes, bye-bye.